Hello and welcome back to InHouse. This is episode number 3 and I'm joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Olly Morris. Thank you for joining us.
I'll take myth out of those 3, but yeah, no. Thanks for having me.
We've got a couple of bikes to have a chat about today and a little bit about yourself, so we can dive in. First question, I suppose, is what are you in the mountain bike scene?
That is a really good question, and there's so many words for it, isn't it? You actually asked earlier, like, am I a performance coach or all these sorts of things? And yeah, I am a coach, and that's basically all I've done all my life is coaching people, and not all in mountain biking. And yeah, but another word for that, I suppose, is basically helping people make life easier for people in whatever craft or art that they happen to do. So in this world, obviously it's in mountain biking. So yeah, I just like to see myself as somebody that makes it a little bit easier for somebody to do their job, which hopefully means they ride faster, which hopefully means they're a bit safer on the bike, hopefully means it improves their confidence and their planning and all of that sort of stuff. But
Gotcha.
yeah.
So it's more than just how to go quick on the bike, it's the psychology around it, it's all encompassing then.
Definitely, yeah. Sometimes I get involved in things maybe that I probably even shouldn't, but it's all out of care and all out of kind of like just wanting to help people.
Yeah, excellent, amazing. And that also extends to sort of team work as well. And you obviously spent some time on the pro circuit, looking after a lot of the teams. Can you go through some of the things that you were responsible for in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, so like at the World Cups, for example, a lot of it's the line spotting or line guy or whatever they call you kind of thing. And I again, even when I'm there, although it's a very busy time and I love being on the hill, I actually really like the bits like before working with the riders and or after at the end of the day or the end of the week. Kind of reviewing like how the race has gone and thinking about how they're going to make changes for the next race, and that's the bit that I really like. The line stuff's fun and it's very you're like in the thick of the action, if you know what I mean. It's kind of, you're very in there. But the one-to-one, the close personal stuff is where I get into the nitty-gritty. That's the fun bit for me.
Amazing. So that's, I'm guessing you need to have quite a knowledge about how the riders are going to react in lots of different situations on different tracks, or maybe not even in the racing environment. How do you get into the mindset of the riders, or in any sort of coaching that you might have in extension to that? Yeah,
totally. And in other words, kind of like the adapting for different riders kind of thing. And it's the thing that I love the most. It's like I almost like pick riders that I work with more based on the differences in the people than just whether they're good or bad on a bike kind of thing. That's irrelevant. For me, it's about how you can work with them kind of thing. So yeah, I have some very weird and wonderful riders that are all so different, and I learn so much from them. Like it's like, and what I mean by that, I learn so much from them on how I have to adapt my coaching, how I have to change my approach, how you need to speak to them. Yeah, like some riders are very much, you need to like use, I kind of like speak about like using their power, if you know what I mean. And other riders, it's more the other way where, you know, I need to sort of give a bit more information and everyone else is sort of in between kind of thing. So yeah, it's great fun trying to figure out that kind of process with people.
And so you're going to have a pretty serious foundation yourself in order to then build upon your coachees, I suppose, to build upon their skill sets and their sort of psychology. So your history in bikes, where did you start and where are you going?
Yeah. So I guess I was like an early starter in bikes. So I like from the age of like 13, 14, I was about to say started riding, but I literally started racing from that day. Racing was always just way more fun for me, as you've probably seen from some other articles that I've written recently. But it was always, I suppose back then it was always just a hobby. It was like something I just enjoyed, and also back then, which we are talking about 25 years ago now, showing my age. But you know, it was kind of like weekends away, drinking, like having fun, like and riding your bike. It was very much more that way. Whereas And then it wasn't until I was about mid-20s, 26 or something, where actually I decided to try and do a bit more with my riding. So from that point, started getting to a few World Cups, managed to scrape my way into Elite, which the first year in Elite was, do they call it humbling, or I don't know, just like that. It was like the last year in Expert was like the best year racing. You're getting podiums every week. It was like a bad day was like 5th, you know, a good day's 1st, and then Elite, like a bad day is dead last, you know, and then and a good day was like beating one other rider. You know, it was so hard in that first year. But I suppose so stubborn, persistent, I don't know what I was, but I just sort of hung around for long enough to then start making my way through the ranks in Elite. And that's when actually I got picked up by Saddleback a few years later for the Saddleback Intense team back then. That was an awesome team for so many reasons. And it was awesome the fact that Saddleback kind of, I guess through the investment and the time and the energy, I think was probably more than the investment. And I think the investment was a lot back then. So it was a great team. They picked up some really, really, really good riders, got me on to ride, but also kind of managed the team as well. Some of those riders, like now, you know, Joe Breeden, for example, you guys still support for Troy Lee, I think. You know, have progressed really well. So it was a cool team back there. Good little, I suppose, probably a good springboard for me as well into kind of the sort of working with bigger riders, if you like. So it was a great little team.
Yeah, and you're racing. You're still continuing with your racing.
I would
nowadays?
never stop racing. Yeah. Everyone always. There's so many people think because I'm a coach. Oh, you don't race anymore, do you, Ollie? Kind of thing. Like. But I love racing. Like, I didn't realise last year how little I raced. I looked back at the end of the year. I rode a lot, and I looked back at the end of the year and realised I didn't actually race much. I love racing. It's like an obsession. I love trying to figure out. That's why I also coach it. But I love trying to figure out like how to go faster on a track. So you've got a 2 or 3 day window, and how can you get the most out of that track within those few days? And you know. Pretty much what my business is focused around, but it's not just about the riding fast, you know, it's all of the stuff around it, which I love. So I have an obsession with that still for myself, and I always joke with my personal trainer, I always say I haven't peaked yet. And he's like, you probably have, and I was like, I haven't peaked yet. So, and I believe I haven't, but.
That's too right. And one of the things keeping you fast is your new ride for downhill especially, your Phoenix from Pivot. Yeah. Can you give us a little bit of, I guess, what you are loving about this bike? Just because you've not had it for too long for the season yet.
Not too long.
Quite early on in the season. Just some key things that you've swung your leg over, you've done a few races, you've won a few races.
That's a good point, yeah. Although that was on Firebird, to be fair.
And we'll cover that in a minute. So just a few things that you're really sort of thrilled by with the Phoenix. If you have some key things. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, the first thing you said, like about going fast, it looks fast, doesn't it? Like there's one thing for sure, and that always helps, kind of thing. I don't care about like looks so much, like, but you definitely, it's a bit of an eye turner. The whole kind of Pivot range, definitely. I've noticed when I'm like, you know, either pedaling up the hill on the Firebird or out on this, people, you go past them and they kind of start talking about Pivot bikes. They're like, oh yeah, that's nice, and you know, and I don't hear the full conversation, but there's definitely a kind of like, there's definitely an eye-turning thing about them, which is cool. But to be fair, that's like actually for me personally the least thing. I'm so fussy, especially with downhill bikes, about how it rides. I guess probably being a bike coach, that's part of the reason of that is how I ride it. I'm very kind of like about that two-way relationship. So like I'm pushing certain buttons on this bike as we go down a hill, and then he's trying to talk back to me, if you like. So I'm definitely very fussy. So I've been out. Where have I done it? I've done a couple of days in the UK. Oh, actually a full weekend in the UK and one other uplift day, and then went out to Portugal for 3 days testing in Lusa. That was actually out with Joe, to be fair, and then we did a race on it at the end of that week.
Yep.
So I feel like comfortable on it now. There's more to go, I think.
Yep.
I always say to learn all the ins and outs of a bike, I think it takes a few months.
Yep.
But I've got the setup good. Some things that I found though in terms of what it did really well is cornering, insane, and I'd say that's across the whole pivot range. Like cornering becomes less. I guess you don't have to think about it so much. It's just like if I want to change direction, I change direction and I go. You know, and it's. I know that sounds almost daft, doesn't it? But I think people who ride much or even a little bit will really know what I mean. Like I just point it and shoot kind of thing. So
it becomes instinctual at the high speeds. And
totally. Yeah. Like cornering is honestly brilliant. I'm going to be really honest. I'm a fan of a mixed wheel bike, like have been for many years. But the reason I'm a fan in the mixed wheel is because I like a bike that leans over really, really well. So and a mixed wheel generally will, I call it falls over, but like will lean easier into the corners. But there's something about this that still makes this really agile. I think it might be the slightly short rear end.
Yep.
It's a little bit lower on the BB potentially. But yeah, if I'm honest, I was nervous for downhill going onto a full 29er, and I've got on it. And if anyone said they could make it a mixed wheel, I'd say don't worry about it. Like, it's good.
and they are a little bit longer than some at the front. Have you done anything to change that for positioning wise, or anything like that?
Yeah, well, to be fair, it's actually, compared to my old bike, it's a little bit shorter, to be fair, this one.
Yep.
So I've actually put a reach cup in the front of it. So I'm on a large.
Yep.
And they do they do a small? But they do a medium, large and extra large.
Yep.
Typically my last bikes were between the kind of large and extra large kind of size. So you're sort of nervous, but every bike ride's different anyway. So I sort of ignored that to a point, went for the large, threw a reach cup forward in it, so 6mm forward. So I think it sits at something like around about a 466 reach, if anybody cares about their numbers.
I think a lot of people will do.
I would definitely care.
Yeah.
And the biggest change I do, and not many people run this, but on the crown here, I run a really short crown, so I run a 48mm offset crown. I used to be a really big fan of the longer offset. And didn't really like the kind of middle one at 52, but then came even further towards me with the 48, and it works really, really well on this bike. I'd say it's a good shout for the steering.
And in terms of balancing your suspension setup, are you able to go into a little bit of some of the detail about how you run the fork and shock?
Totally. So because it's closer to me, if I start with the shock, so I think the bike came with 2 volume spacers in.
Yep.
So I actually ran it on 2 at first, but went very quickly up to 5 volume spacers after that. I weigh about 77 kilos, if you don't include my kit, so just over 80 with all the helmet and stuff on. So I put, and now I've got 215 PSI in the shock with 5 volume spacers, and it holds up really, really, really well. I'm quite fortunate I work very closely with Sprung Suspension as well. So Jake up there and the guys, I think I'm on my 3rd tune on this shock, to be fair. Yep. I said I was fussy. But now I'm there with this tune and and the volume, like the spring rates. It's feeling really good.
Yeah,
really good.
nice.
And you even said it, you were like, crikey, that feels quite nice when you just felt it in the car park, didn't you?
Planted.
Very planted.
Yeah.
And sits up like us downhillers. It's like, do you know what? Downhillers, and this isn't just me, I can speak about every downhiller across every brand of bike.
Yeah.
We all want a bike that doesn't dip too much. So especially when you're in corners, we don't want it to dip too much on the rear. But we also want a bike that has good grip, so over the rough stuff will feel like a supple, if that's the word that people use. But basically, I call it grip, so stick to the floor really well. So that's our challenge, but they're almost contradiction of terms, aren't they? Because it's like, well, actually, we could have a really soft bike that tracks well but maybe blows through. But with the 5 volume tokens in here, I think it's really good. And I'd say anybody should definitely try. I guess there's people with different speeds and things like this, but I'd definitely say go up a couple on the 2 that it comes with, for sure. Okay. Like maybe go up to 3 or 4 to start with, and then and then go 5. So that's the shock. I mean, rebound, I generally run quite open. I'm about 10 clicks on low speed, roughly, if that means anything to anybody. About 5 clicks on high speed rebound. Now, all rebounds, especially high speed, are slightly different with the different shocks that you have, like the different tunes. But somewhere around that works pretty well, and that's on the fast-ish side, I would say. If people prefer more open. Compression, the tune that I've got means I can run a bit more compression. So I've got about 4 clicks on high speed and about 8 to 10 on low. So
you find that's a good balance then?
Yeah. It's like a good. It's a good place to start. I think if you've got a more stock tune, I'd run less high speed. So take the high speed off a bit more. So that's the rear, and then the front. I've actually come up a little bit PSI from what I used to run. Again, this is the numbers. People are going to enjoy this bit more than anything else. But I'm 77 kilos myself. So I used to run about 84 PSI. I've gone up to about 86 to 88, roughly around about there. I'm still moving around with that a little bit to make sure it has the right balance. Rebounds are somewhere around about 6 and 6. When I say around about, I am very fussy, but I mean like it's about what I run, but I'll change it for track, or again, I'm still learning the bike. So somewhere around about 6 and 6. High speed turned off with these forks, and low speed is around about 10. So fairly middle stock. And I run 3 volume tokens. So most of the guys in the World Cups, they seem to go for 4. It's like 4 is the number. But I've just found I've gone 3 and then a few more PSI, which seems to work well.
Nice. And we've got another bike to have a look at.
We have.
So we're going to change this quickly. So as if by magic, we have a new bike, and this is your Firebird.
It is my Firebird. Yeah, it sounded funny saying that, didn't it? Firebird,
yeah. So I have heard you say that it was just fast. You get on it, and it was just fast. What made it just fast?
Do you know what? And I I think I did say just fast, didn't I? But the thing that makes this bike as a whole is the fact that it actually does everything really, really well. So I'm sure there are the odd bikes out there that do one of the categories better than this, but will fail at everything else, if you know what I mean. Whereas this bike, and again, you know, we're only sort of a month in or whatever that we've had it, but this bike definitely will just, like, it just does everything. I have done almost nothing to it, let's put it that way.
Okay.
Like, in fact, that's a bit of a lie. We'll talk about air shocks in a minute. I have done a slight tune on that. But like, I don't even think I've changed the bar height, which normally I spend the first, like, you know, few months on constantly going higher and lower on a new bike to try and get that right kind of thing. And like, I'm just looking at it now, trying to think, I don't know if even Olly, who built the bike, Olly Morris, who built the bike, I don't even know how tall I was, because I haven't even had to move the seat. Like, it's literally get on and go.
I think he would like to claim that he is just that good.
Maybe he is, but nobody's that good, right? He doesn't know my inside legs like measurement. Or if he does, I'd be slightly worried.
Yeah.
And he has built bikes for me in the past before, but honestly, like, it just, you know, and it's got, with respect to Olly, who's a great bike builder, like, you just get on and go, and it rides. Yeah, it rides fast, but I think above that, because probably not everybody races, like, it just is comfortable, you know, and it's just easy, like, and that's all you ever want on a bike, isn't it? For it to be easy doing the thing that you want to do on it, kind of thing.
That's it. And I alluded to it earlier, but you picked up the bike, and 2 days later, was it, that you won?
Yeah.
What was it? What was that race?
So it was a regional race. It was nothing like massive, but there's still, like, I think they have 200 or 300 riders there at it. So it's like these winter races, the mini downhills that Chris runs, and they're like small event, but actually, like, there's loads of people there, more spectators sometimes at a national than at a national. They're on a small track in the Forest of Dean, and I picked this bike up on the Friday. I think checked my tyre pressures and like put my stock settings on the forks. roughly set the sag as it sort of says on like from Pivot online and stuff, or even in the manual. And then I just didn't touch it, and I just rode a weekend just doing laps. Found it pretty comfortable straight away, and then fortunately won it, which I wasn't expected, but yeah, it's good fun all the same.
Well, it's I guess in a sense it's proof that it's doing everything you think the bike should be able to do within yourself, like your capabilities, your skills, just get added to this, and the results speak for themselves, really, don't
Totally, yeah.
they? A speed adder.
A speed, yeah, I guess it is, yeah. No, it's a few people have dropped hints, but nobody had said how good the bike was, and sometimes I'm, like mostly I race the downhill bike. This is the bike I'd ride and train on the local hills and stuff like that, but mostly I'm racing a downhill bike. So the downhill bike's the bike that I guess I care more about, if that makes sense, in terms of like the setup and all of these sorts of things. But so I've never normally overly cared that much about the trail bike, but I've got on this, I'm like, oh, and I've ridden it way more. I've ridden the trail bike a lot recently. Well, even that race, for example, so it's and
it's interesting you doing a mini downhill race on a long trail bike. With some of these big events, especially things like Rampage, and people are moving away from some of the triple clamp stuff and going on to some of the sort of burlier, sort of normal bikes, I suppose. Is that something you see might happen moving forwards, or is it?
Yeah, good question. To be fair, I think things like Rampage, they've taken the triples off because they want to do tail whips. Do you know what I mean? If I'm honest, I think it's more because of that. Yeah. But these bikes are getting more or becoming more and more capable, aren't they? We've said it. Year on year, we always say, soon we won't need a downhill bike. Now, I am biased to downhill bikes, but you still need a downhill bike. They are still built differently. They don't. The compromises a downhill bike needs are less than a trail bike. This has to pedal back up the hill. That's what it's built for. So whereas the downhill bike, we didn't speak about floors because there, to be fair, aren't any. But if there was one, it can't pedal up the hills. And the designers will probably be quite happy for me saying that. These bikes, they do have to do everything, don't they? But the compromise is improving for sure. The geometry of them, they found I think a good place nowadays. Some people tried to get extreme and then it's come back. I think it's found a nice place in terms of BB height, head angle, and then where we're now, 165mm travel, it sneaked up to kind of thing. It was like 140s, wasn't it? And then 150s, 155s, and now 165. So I can't probably say enough good things about it. It's a lovely bike to have.
Okay. And will we be seeing you on the Enduro circuit at all?
Well, I coach a couple of Enduro races. So Fergus Ryan, another Saddleback TLD rider, and probably. I race Enduro, but I do. I race downhill, but I do an Enduro or two each year anyway. Partly because it's fun. But also because it's keep my hand in, because I'm a coach. I need to just at least be able to have that, to be able to show empathy to Enduro problems. And I did one recently, and I did everything that I work on with Ferg and other Enduro riders. I didn't do everything that I work on with Ferg and Enduro riders for how to race Enduro. So it was a good little reminder to me, don't try and beat the system, ride how you, practice what you preach, basically.
Got you. And in terms of setup on this beautiful bike, how are you setting up this differently to the big rig?
So to be fair, I tried my hardest to sort of have them feeling as close to each other. That's both in terms of sizing. Naturally, geometry is going to be a bit different because it's a steeper head angle on the trail bike. But my cockpit, which I think we're waiting on the MVs to go on, aren't we? But the M9s, everyone in Saddleback's trying to get me on the M7s on the trail bike, and I'm like, but I run the M9s on the downhill bike, so I'm going to need them on the trail bike. And it's like, if I can make it as similar as you can, at least every bike I get on is as close to being the same. So that's kind of cockpit. I think we're going to go with some wheels, some MV wheels. But in terms of what's already on it, suspension wise, again, I just have like a stock setup for the Fox 38s, just under 100 psi, and same rebound settings as the downhill bike, around about 6 and 6. Same compression settings as the downhill bike, about 10 on low speed. So it's trying to get it as same as you can. Then with the shock, I left it for that race that we were speaking about. I ran the shock on stock. I didn't know what volume spaces came in it. Didn't know anything, to be fair, but ran it fairly stock, and it felt good. But I definitely felt like I just wanted like a tiny little bit more support nearer. Actually, I was probably nearer to the end of the travel, somewhere around about 2/3 of the way through and onwards. So it's just when I was like hitting, like when it raced, I didn't really notice it until the actual race, but when it race speed, it was just, because you come into the berms when you're hitting them at that pace, it was just pushing a little bit more through the travel than I'd wanted. So literally I just opened up the shock and we chucked. So I put I don't know if it was meant to, but it came with no volume spacers in it. Yeah. So I put 2 volume spacers in, and absolutely beautiful. Yeah, fixed that problem, but without compromising any of the other issues, to be fair.
Yeah, fantastic. And so there is going to be a little bit of an update to the bikes going forwards, as you say, with the MV, and with that, it's definitely, I mean, they're fantastic bits of kit, but it comes down to a little bit more of the sort of reliability side of things, and durability, and maybe a little weight saving.
Yeah.
How much does that take away from some of the worries from racing?
Like turning up at Fort William, for example, like it is a wheel breaking track, like that is for sure, like no one can deny that kind of thing. And on alloy wheels, it's a wheel bending track. So I see people with alloy wheels and they're trying to change their tyres the next day after the day at Fort William, and the tyres won't go on the rim because of they're like obviously all like dinked in and stuff like this. It's just not a problem that you have with NVs or with carbon wheels. I've ridden carbon wheels, I think now for about maybe 7 and 8 years, and to be fair, I mean, people say about stiffness, and that is definitely a thing, especially on the front wheel. But if you don't have mechanics and you don't have all of the support around you, I actually think a carbon wheel is way, way better. I mean, MV for one, if you break them, you can just bring them back here and and you guys are putting a new one on. That's for everybody, like not just sponsored riders. But yeah, just the reliability, way, way, way better. The other thing with MV, and I've missed this actually, but the is it rubber or plastic? But that like insert that they have is the best thing ever. Like I remember the past couple of years, I haven't been on MV, but I was before that. I remember having to I was like taping rims again. I was like, what is this? What is this taping of rims? You know, and I'm like having to do spokes up, which was never a thing on MV. I mean, it is a thing, but very, very rare. But so yeah, that insert is beautiful, and it means, to be fair as well, like if you do get a puncture, you'll still get down the tyre or stay on. You know, so it's. And
we have moved you also to another one of our brands, Silka. Tyre sealant. Yeah. And you've had a little bit of a run-in with holes. Yes. In rims.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite interesting that. Like you sent me some of the Silka sealant the other day, and I was actually a bit nervous because I put it into my tyres before I went out to Portugal for testing on the downhill bikes, and naturally you're like, well, I haven't used it before and I'm going to be away, and I've sort of thrown this pot of new stuff in, and I know it says it's great and you guys have all said it's great, but you know, when you listen to the people in marketing, you've got to go, okay, cool, hear what you're saying, and then move on to seeing what it's actually like on track. Yeah. And so slightly nervous, chucked it in, and I was trying to figure it all out and got it out there. Anyway, I broke a rim on the downhill bike, but I managed to use the rim for the rest of the week. So I broke it on day 2. And I still raced on it at the end of that weekend, which was 3 or 4 days of riding more. and you could see the sealant. I mean, it like sort of sealed around where the hole was in the rim, where the flat spot was.
Yeah.
But you could see how thick it was, the way it had like come up over the tyre as well. So it's my first experience of it, and obviously there's more testing and understanding of it to go, but based on that, I was pretty impressed. In fact, I re-pumped the tyre up the other day, now I've got it home, and it went up again, which I was kind of a bit shocked about. So,
mega.
yeah, looking forward to using that a bit more though, for sure.
Amazing. So, no doubt we'll have a look at the bikes once they've had their little upgrade to MV, so make sure to check out our social media channels and your own as they come. Maybe we'll do another little video about the bikes with their upgrades, see some really quite special bikes with some Envy Exotica on them. But yeah, thank you very much for coming. Have you got any upcoming plans in the immediate future?
Yeah, to be fair, we've got, in a couple of weeks, we've got a race coming on. When does this get released?
It's a very good question.
Because nobody needs to know about this yet, to be fair.
In the near future.
There's a fun race being held somewhere where I can't speak about that's coming up soon. So there's that, and then after that April we're straight into the thick of it. So there's the first national at Riola, which we're really excited about.
Amazing.
And then the season begins. That's both with the riders I work with and for me. So I think I'll be nice and busy.
Busy times ahead, definitely.
For sure.
Well, thanks very much, Ollie, for dropping by and bringing these two amazing bits of kit.
Cheers.
We hope the rest of the season goes awesome for you and for you guys that you are coaching and looking after. Make sure you let us know which was your favourite in the comments below. Are you more of a Firebird sort of rider, or do you like the big rig and want to just go a bit heavy and hard down those downhill runs?
Shall I comment and put Phoenix, or not me comment? Yeah, just the guys.
Well, I guess we now know what he's going for. Yeah, make sure you check back for the next video, which we're going to have some more amazing stuff to show you in-house at Saddleback.
Cheers, Josh.
Thanks very much, man.
Nice one.
Cheers, Ollie.